Hey there. Welcome. Good to see you, Adam.
Oh man, hey man, I'm happy to be here. Happy to be on the show.
Welcome to the Intangify podcast. This is the new edition. So, really glad to have you. This is a podcast where we talk about the intangible aspects of business. And that can be a lot of things. I was talking with our producer a little while ago about what does intangible mean? Because for some people, they don't even get that term. So, what's intangible mean to you, Adam?
Ooh, intangible. Without ChatGPT or without my dictionary, maybe it's hard to describe. It's something you can't quite put your finger on. It's not a
Oh, that's
tangible would be
perfect.
something that's very easy to very easy and direct. Intangible might be like, maybe there's a gray area. I don't know, something that's obscure a little bit.
I like that answer. So
Am I
I
off?
like that
I'm
you can't
probably
something you
off. I
can't put your
mean,
finger on, right?
yeah.
No, it's exactly right, right? It's something you can't put your finger on, right? When something's intangible, right? Tangible things are physical things you can hold. But intangibles, all those other things that, and in the context of business, all those other things that give value to your business.
Yeah.
So what I'm excited about with the podcast and with this episode of the podcast is really talking about a particular intangible that we're doing right now, which is
Hmm.
podcasting. I
Yeah.
think that's hysterical, right? We got to do a podcast about podcasting.
Oh my gosh. Done.
But I think that there's really good reason to do it,
Mhm.
and I think to help our listeners appreciate it, let's first have them understand who you are and what you do,
Yeah.
and then we can drill into different aspects of podcasting and what's important about it, what's useful about it, what
Hmm.
things you need to be careful about it.
Yeah, wonderful. So I'm the other co-founder of Mission Matters. So myself and Shirag Cigar, we co-founded this company about 9 years ago, and I've been podcasting now for quite some time as well. I feel like 7 out of those 9 years, I've done over 6,000 episodes,
Wow.
and this year I'll do between 1,500 and 2,000 episodes, and I feel like I'm just getting started. It's one of those things where it's my passion. I enjoy it. I like helping other people launch shows. I like helping to support other people like in their shows. I mean, it's my sport, honestly, Matthew. I thought about it the other day and I'm like, Michael Jordan had basketball, other people have basketball, you pay other sports. I was never maybe the most athletic. I was athletic, but I never was like a champion. But podcasting to me it's what I do. I do it every single day. I was doing episodes before this episode. I do some episodes after this episode. It's what I do, man. So if you want to talk about podcasting, I think you got the right person here today. We're good.
Totally. I mean, what I love is that you're a podcaster. You've got your podcast.
Hmm.
And you've done so many of them. I mean, wow, I can't even imagine doing 6,000. And that you also have this business that's all about launching and
Hmm.
running podcasts for people.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's a really great kind of, I don't know which one's the priority for you, but it's great that you do both of those things.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, to me, it's all in fulfilling our mission. So when you think about mission matters as a whole, and our motto or our line is we help amplify stories. So we amplify stories, and so at the root of all of this, I think it's connectivity. I think it's spreading love. I think it's allowing others to collaborate. Like there's the function and the tool might be the podcast, but the collaboration and the content that comes out of it is just so much more. It's so much deeper. Like literally right now, and I don't know if you think this way, Matthew, but this is the way I think about it. When you invite me onto your show, we're now part of each other's legacy. Like people are going to look at this in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. When you and I are far gone, whatever, and somebody Googles us or chat GPTs us or whatever is going to be next, who knows what it's going to be when they turn on their hologram and on their glasses or whatever's plugged into their head and they say, who is Matthew and who is Adam? Like this is going to come up. And so we are part of each other's legacy. So that piece of content, like our families will watch that one day. Like that's a piece of thing that's going to live on far, far far after we do. So I think it's a very intimate way to make content with people, and to also get to know somebody, and in that collaboration, and to really even to get to network. Like there's just so many levels and layers. I won't go too deep here, but I'll go kind of deep. Last year in October, I lost my mom, and I think about like when I lost her, and the things that I look at and I lean at on today, it's the episodes. I brought her on the show multiple times. I have those episodes, and then I think about it, and I'm like, how many other, my grandparents, my other grandparents, like I don't have any living anymore. And I'm like, man, would it be amazing if I had episodes with them? Like if I was talking to them and I could listen to that. Like selfishly, I miss my grandparents, my grandmas, and my grandpas. Like that would have been cool. So when I think about legacy, when I think about what we're doing today, it's far more than just providing some tips or teaching other people to podcast. Like that's a piece of it, but really now we're part of each other's legacy, which I think is special.
I really appreciate that. I'm actually reminded. So my office, where I'm based right now,
Mm-hmm.
we're right in Grand Central Station in New York
Yeah.
City, and I remember, and I don't remember how many years ago this was, but I remember walking through Grand Central Station and seeing these little. It looked like basically a trailer, like a
Mm.
truck trailer that was inside Grand Central Station. I think it was called something like Senior Stories or something like that, and it was a place where you're supposed to go with your like elderly relative and
Mm.
interview them, and it was sort of for the public, right? I'm reminded of that since you were talking about what you did with your mom and what you
Mm.
could do with other relatives. But I digress. I really appreciate your
Mm-hmm.
comments, about the legacy and aspect of it. um, when you began, you talked a little bit about, this is called Mission Matters, and you started with the
Mm-hmm.
mission. And I guess it's not really clear to me, so I'd love for you to
Yeah.
explain. Did the mission happen before you started podcasting, before you started a podcasting company? Which happened first,
Mm.
the podcasting company, or the mission?
I would say that my understanding of the mission and what we're doing, it continues to unfold. So, like for example, until last October, I didn't even understand this legacy piece. But if we
Awesome.
go further back, like if we go back to like the beginning, this company wasn't called Mission Matters; it was called Money Matters, and originally it was a marketing arm of another business I had where I was in finance. I was in finance almost 14 years, so it was like a marketing arm, if we could call it an arm. There were no employees. It was basically some IP. It was just to hold some IP for a book I wrote, basically. I don't think we could really call it an arm, but I'll use some liberty there. No employees, nothing like that, and so it was just basically to protect a book. And looking at that, as that book did pretty well, and then over time, I wanted to do another one. That's when I met my other co-founder, Shirag. I always joke and I tell people, how did I meet Shirag? I swiped right on LinkedIn, I guess. That's how we met, was on LinkedIn, and we've been together ever since. Yeah, that was. I originally approached him to be a part of this book that I was doing, which, for those that are in the car, they can't see this, but for those that are watching the video, you can see it. We're at our 11th edition of this book, which is our Mission Matters anthology series. We published over 400 people. We bring them together, and that 11th edition actually just came out last week. So really proud of that. But where it started is I had this deck. Can't not claiming I had a big infrastructure. Company had a deck, and I knew Shirag because we'd met, and I'm like, hey, do you want to be part of this book? I think it'll be pretty cool. We'll all come together, and then we'll promote. We'll be in the book together and have some fun. He says yes, he'd like to, but not only that, he said he thought it was a good business. And I'm like, a business? What are you talking about? I was in finance. I'm like, this isn't a business. This is a little book. This is a marketing thing, right? So long story after this is that we started bringing authors together, and that's how it all started. And then at some point, he mentioned starting a podcast, and he's like, Adam, we got to start a podcast. And I'm like, I'm not starting no stupid podcast. I didn't even know what a podcast was, but when anybody asks me to do something, the first thing I'm going to do is say no, especially if it's work. The faster I can get a no and see if they go away. The problem with Shirag is he doesn't go away. So after a pretty quick moment, I knew I had to do the podcast thing, and I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know what a podcast was. I don't even know if I ever listened to one before, like starting one. And but he convinced me. He's the first person I ever interviewed, and I didn't even know how to do that. I was like, it's okay. So we were basically I was recording them on my phone. I didn't edit them. I didn't have a fancy show like yours, Matthew. I was like just whatever.
You
I
couldn't
was
walk off the screen like
No,
this.
I couldn't do that. That was too fancy. I couldn't do any of that. So one day, to get to where mission matters comes up. One day, I'm doing an interview, and I'm interviewing a guest, and they say, you know, Adam, money matters, but mission matters too. And I'm like, oh, it was like God just like speaking to me through another person, through a human. And it kind of hit me in the gut. And that's the way God talks to me. So he's like, you know, he might give me a little prod, might put me in the headlock, give me a noogie. I don't know, but God makes sure to get my attention because I'm a little slow, Matthew. so so he got my attention. So then I finally talked to Shirag, and I'm like, hey, Matt, what do you think about the name Mission Matters? And he's like, we talk about it a little bit. We put it on the side, we put it on the table, and so to speak. And you know, a couple weeks later, he comes back and he's like, Adam, what do you think about the name Mission Matters for our company? I'm like, Shirag, that's an amazing idea you just had. so so you know, right after that, I'm like, if we look up, you know, this on a domain, and if it, I know it's going to be taken because it's too good of a name. If we have enough money in the bank account, we're going to get it. And that's it, like, or I'm not looking it up. And he's like, all right, do it. And so spent more money than I ever thought I would on a domain. And then from that point on, it was 9 days later, we relaunched the entire brand. We started a new show, and the new shows we broke down into 8 different shows, and then the whole platform's all niched out. So everything from I have a business show, a money show, a marketing show, a tech show, a startup garage show. So you know, it's all niched out so that anybody can go to our website and not only listen to my shows that I host, but shows like yours and shows that other curated podcasts that we brought onto the platform that we think are great content for our audience. So they can also go there. And then and the interesting part about all this was that at this point, you got to think like people were probably thinking we were kind of crazy because I'd already done over 1,500 episodes, and we'd already published multiple books under the Money Matters brand, and we had a social media presence. We had everything's built out. So, you know, it's hard to get something in media to work the first time. And so now you're going to pause it, stop, and then start over from scratch again. That's one of those moments where God says, you know, jump, you know, step, and I'll step. And I just felt that God was talking to me, and it was time to step, and we stepped, and we were rewarded. And so that's where that's how the Mission Matters came to be. It definitely wasn't my brilliant foresight. No, it was God.
So you stepped a little bit into my world as you started talking about that.
Mm-hmm.
I think the motives behind all of this are amazing, and
Yep.
your humility totally appreciate. But the but how it came to be is a great story.
Yep.
In my world, and you know, people don't know, I'm an intellectual property attorney. Sometimes, pretty regularly, I'm dealing with those types of issues where
Mm-hmm.
I not that someone chooses to rebrand necessarily like you did,
Yeah.
but you know, expand your, you know, or change from being about money to being about mission, which I think
Mm.
is beautiful. Um, but sometimes they're forced into it, right? Because
Yeah.
of the fights they have with other people. And it brings to mind, something I wanted to ask you, which is,
Yeah.
okay, you came up with this name, or Shirag came up with this name, or God came up with this name, but uh, you bought the domain name, which, by the
Yep.
way, I have clients that always do that first, and it's
Mm-hmm.
usually like not the first thing you need to do, but
It shouldn't have
they
been.
come to me too late.
Yep.
Um, but anyway, you come up with this name, and then, wouldn't you be worried that someone else might already have the name, be using it for
Mm-hmm.
their own podcast, their own book series, or someone like me comes along and goes, "Oh, that's a really cool name. I think maybe I'll use that for my
Yeah.
podcast."
Yeah.
How do you deal with those sorts of things?
So I'll tell you when we made the exact mistake that you're talking about. Like we and this is the weird part about in our case. In our case, I've I filed for things in the past. So I'll give you an example, a brief one, and then I'll answer your question. But it's kind of a funny one. So because we did make that mistake, everything that you're talking about, and so my first time going through like protecting a piece of IP, it was with the original company. I had my office was in Century City, California at the time. I was still in finance. I was still a financial advisor, and I had this nickname. It was from my very first show that I created, and this is before Mission Matters, before anything. And so I was so scared to like even just say my name on social media or anything else like that because I was just fearful. Like I was just scared. So when people see me and they're like, "Oh, wait, what do you mean? You can podcast, you can do this. I can't." I'm like, "No, I was the worst podcaster and the most fearful person ever." And especially you put a camera on, so bad that I wouldn't even use my real name when on my first show. I'm not joking.
Wow.
This is a true story. And so I picked a name which was a nickname that people around the office and around Century City would call me, and they call me Mr. Century City. And the reason they called me this was because I'm one of those community builders. Like I was on the art council in Century City. I was very active with Chamber of Commerce. I was a founding member of the Century City Rotary Club. I mean, when I walk into a room, they'd be like, "Oh, that's Mr. Century City. Why does he like this place so much?" Right? I don't know. I just love it. So I'm a community builder. So as a joke, I'm sitting in my office one day and I'm like, let me see if I can protect this name. so 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 I was like, I wonder is the trademark for Mr. Century City taken? And so that was my first ever like route going through and getting something protected. And they're like, well, you can't, can you protect a name from a city or this or that? I'm like, no, it's Mr. Century City. Um and they did, we'll say, get me a level of protection. So I share that story, well, one because it's funny, but two because I thought it's easy. I thought you just submit it to the lawyer and it's all done and whatever. And who's going to want the name that you want? Like, what are the odds of that, right? Which brings me back to Mission Matters. So I can't, let's just say some of this part of it I'm going to have to be a little bit vague on purpose, but I can say why. I just can't go all the way into it. But let's just say when I filed for Mission Matters, and we didn't do it until years after we had it, like years. I mean, we were already in business quite a few years. And one day, just on a whim, I'm like, hey, we should probably protect this, which is stupid. Like, we should have done that in the beginning. So 6 months prior, so I submitted to the lawyer all the other stuff to going to, to protect the Mission Matters brand. At this point, just to give you an idea just of how silly we were, or I'll say me, that I won't put this on Shrock, how stupid I was. I'm sure he brought it up and I just didn't get to it. It was on the list forever and I didn't get to it. So I'll put that one on me. That's not you, Shirag, if you're watching this. That's all on me. So we were in business at this point. We probably have another 3,000 episodes, another 100 authors. I'm talking years down the line, another 100 authors minimum, like a book series. We got a big social media presence, all this, and the emblems out there and not protected. And so one day I'm like, okay, we should probably do this, right? And so I submit it, and I think it's going to be like when I filed for Mr. Century City. I just get this nice little notification, oh, it's protected and you're fine and everything's hunky dory, right? Which they don't say hunky dory, but I do. It's okay. I'm from the Midwest. It's fine, Matthew. So so of course, like even saying this right now, my heart hurts even saying this because it was the most anxiety I've had in business, I will say, in a long time. It comes back and it's contested. But not only is it contested, but it's contested by one of the largest companies in the world. And not only is it contested, I can't go too far, obviously, because obviously we settled, but I'll just say they had filed for something that wasn't even like what we have, by the way. It was a version that was a sentence, but it did have the two words. But they're also one of the largest companies in the world. So anytime anything comes up on their screen that's anything near anything, and they're probably never going to use what what they were doing anyway, like ever. But again, I would get that lucky, and I'm like, oh my gosh. So we were, so we had that unfortunate bit of now it being drug out for like a year and a half. We didn't have to go to court or anything like that. It was just one of those things to where we had to, a lot of paperwork, a lot of other things, a lot of back and forth, and finally a settlement and a lot more money than if we'd done it prior. And the crazy thing is they filed for theirs. I think off the top of my head, it was like maybe 6 months earlier. And it was like, really, I could have done this for years and been fine. And I'm just like, how, why? But at the end of all of this, I was just grateful that, I mean, again, when you're that big of a company, you have that many digits in your annual income, and you're talking about a little small business. Technically, they could have drug that thing out forever if they wanted to, and forever. So I do think they were reasonable. But if you were to read the two things, which we can't say on this, but if you were to read the two things, it was nothing like Mission Matters. But they're one of the largest companies in the world. What are you going to do? So that was like, that's my horror story, Matthew. I told you, you told me you're an IP attorney. I never shared that one with you. Horror story. Can you imagine how I felt? I'm thinking to myself, we have thousands of 100,000 pieces of content out there with that logo, easily, maybe more. And if they tell us, and if they drag that out, and if they come after us, and if they do a cease and desist, if they do something else, even just to prove, like, even if we won that, what would be the cost of that? And if you had to take the content down, we couldn't even ever physically put it back up. It's impossible. It's years of work. Like, what would that even look like? So basically at that point, when it's one of the largest companies in the world that is contesting your mark, now you're also on their radar. Now you're on their radar. So if they want you, I mean, they could have gobbled us up, no problem. There's no way we don't have money like that. Like, nobody has money like this company. So it would have been just done. Like, we would have had to I don't even know what a rebrand looks like at that point, especially because people were so used to our brand and everything else. And if we would have been forced to do that, even just the cost, like, what do? We take everything down. I still don't, just even thinking about it right now. Oh, my heart, Matthew.
Yeah, it can be very stressful. Certainly,
Mm,
I deal with it every day. Sometimes I'm the aggressor on behalf of a client trying to stop
yeah.
someone, whether it's a little company or a big company, and sometimes
Hmm.
I'm defending somebody, whether they're little or big. And
It's just
uh,
what side of the coin you're on. I know, Matthew. I
yeah,
know. I'm not holding
yeah.
it against you. It's fine. I'm just speaking as a little small business owner over here that was about to get gobbled up.
So how did that impact you as a business that was helping other people launch podcasts? Because now you had that experience,
Hmm.
you were nervous wreck, it cost you, you spent extra money, extra
Hmm.
time, you were nervous about having to rebrand. So what did that mean as you started working with other people and they were coming up with the
Hmm.
branding, the names for their podcasts? How did you deal with that?
So we don't provide, of course, as you're aware, there's no lawyers on staff or anything like that on our end. But when they're creating new shows, they're normally doing a search and they're looking through, but they're more so looking for to my understanding, is our team is more so looking to see if there's other shows that have the same name or anything else like that, or the same anything like that. Kind of like much like books, which I'd be interested to hear how that works in your end, because I see books that have many books that have the exact the title, but then it changes because of the author or things like that, or the subtitle,
Mm.
things like that. But obviously the branding looks different. But I think what our team is doing is they're looking for a search, and they're seeing if there's any other like exact podcasts, and they do that for a number of reasons, not specifically for the legal side of like getting a trademark or like but they're doing it for usually for to see what's going to be competitive in the space, like what's going to be searchable, what's going to be competitive. And then it depends, I would argue, on the type of client. Like, some of the clients that we have, they have their own media companies, so where they're outsourced, portion, and the podcast is just a piece of their media company, so their IP is protected, and they've already kind of gone down that path with the rest of their company. So I'd say there's variations of how people are looking at that, and also just variations depending on their seriousness of like how of their show. Like, are they going to have the show for 3 months, 6 months, a year? Can they see themselves themselves doing it in 5 years? Can they see, like, it kind of depends on the client in terms of how they go down that route of it. But yeah.
Yeah, so when I launched this podcast, I did a whole first season of it with a different provider. Don't tell anybody.
Mm.
Um, and and when I did that, actually from the very beginning, I sort of took my own advice, right? I went and I did a search, and then I filed the trademark application. It actually just registered, like 2 years later. Just
Wow.
just got it like a month or two ago.
Yeah.
Um, which is crazy, but that's how it is
Congratulations.
these days.
I think it'd be super helpful for people that haven't gone through the process, and I don't want to butcher it, but when I was going through the process of for Mission Matters, and I don't think like the concept of like categories. It's like, well, so when you say you got it, I'm like curious, like what categories did you get? Because that was part of like when we settled, there was a very particular category that we couldn't have, and that was part of the deal. So maybe if you could go into that a little bit, that'd be super helpful, because I don't think everybody knows that for sure.
Yeah, I could, but this podcast is supposed to be more about you than about me,
But
so
I want
I
to
don't
know
want to
about
spend
it.
too much time.
Okay, go
But
for it.
I mean, I'll say that with trademarks, there's a treaty that defines 45 different categories or classes of goods or services, depending on what people do. And when people go to register their trademark, to apply to
Yeah.
register their trademark, they select one or more of those classes or categories and particular descriptions within them to try to cover all the things that they're doing. And podcasting is actually, I mean, this is relevant to this podcast, right? Podcasting is actually an interesting one because there are probably 4 or 5 different categories that you could cover in relation to a podcast.
Interesting.
So, my trademark registration for my podcast covers all of the categories.
That's cool.
But for each category or each class, you pay more. Not only to the lawyer if you're working with the lawyer, but also to the government.
Yeah.
So when you're small, you're starting out.
Category. There's a fee for each category, right? Just to be
yes,
clear.
A per class category,
so
a per class fee. So when you're starting out, particularly with a podcast, because I don't think too many of us start out with a podcast thinking we're going to do this as a business and we're going to make money from it. Yeah. Maybe it's lead generation, or maybe it's about meeting other people or learning, or any of a number of different types of things that might motivate someone to do a podcast. But the commercial aspect of it is probably not the front of their mind, especially if it's a side thing for them. Right?
Yeah.
This is not what I do for a living. I know you're a full-time podcaster. I'm a full-time lawyer. Right. So this is a side thing for me. But of course, since this is my area, I was thinking about it. But I'd say most people who I know, who I meet, who are doing this, don't think to seek these types of protections, much like you didn't, because it's bottom of their list. They got so many other fish to fry,
And we almost lost our business because of it. So we're the ultimate. If you're watching this, and if you haven't thought about this, and you've been pouring your heart and soul into your show and into your brand for years, and you haven't, you better, man, call Matthew. You better do something, because you better consult with somebody, because when you said you're inviting me on, Matthew, I was like, man, I got a story for you you're not going to believe. And nobody has that story, just FYI.
Oh, well, actually, a lot of people have that story, sadly.
Not from me, I mean, not from me.
Right. Oh, your story.
Yep.
Okay, yeah. Well, now it's there. Now it's out there. But I was going to say, in response to something else you said a little bit earlier, because you were asking about titles of books.
Yeah.
And I thought that was interesting and maybe worth pointing out, because in this country, in the United States, the title of a creative work is not something you can own. But when it's a series, when there are multiple episodes, multiple, sequels, etc., then you can own the title. So a podcast differs from a title of a book in the sense that a podcast is a series.
Oh.
But
what if it's a book series?
A book series is okay too. You can
That's what I
protect a
thought.
book
Okay,
series
okay.
or a movie series,
Yeah.
right? So that's good. But the other thing that people don't get, and people just it doesn't even occur to them,
Hmm.
especially early stage, is that the laws in this country are not the same as the laws in most other countries around the world.
Oh,
So
duh.
in Germany, for instance, I believe it's Germany, you can own the title of a work. And why do
Hmm.
you care if you're based in the United States? Well, where's your audience, right? Where are people consuming the content? So it's not only about where you're producing it. And I don't want to raise for you to answer the question in terms of where you sought protections beyond the United States, but that is something that
Hmm.
people neglect to do because they're so focused on where they are and they think
Mm-hmm.
that the rights they're going to get are going to cover them everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, I
So
agree with that, and that's a great point. And I was thinking about the class thing because I know we didn't cover like every single class. So what happens when you don't cover every single class? So let's say there was one. I'm making this up. So if I'm wrong, or you can tell me a class, but I can try and make one up. If it fashion is fashion a class maybe, and I don't
yeah,
even know
class
if we did.
25 for clothing.
Oh, is it? Okay, so let's say I
Yeah.
didn't protect fashion, then in theory, somebody could go out there and, have a mission matters, like, how does that work, like, when you don't protect
Yeah,
something?
so it's funny because that we've come up with this categorization. We
Yeah.
want to actually use that, but in practice, in the United States,
Hmm.
the government and is not supposed to be utilizing the class
Oh.
as the defining issue of whether there's an overlap. The overlap, if there's confusion, if there's a risk, is because the product or the service is similar to the product or the service of the other party. Those
Hmm.
don't have to be in the same class.
Oh.
So the classes are for convenience. And in the United States, the classes are
Yes,
for
yes.
convenience. And I have to say that because in a lot of other countries, it is down to the class. You need to care
Oh.
about the class and not what the specific goods or services are.
Hmm.
But there's also a deterrent factor, right? The broader you protect yourself in the number of different categories that you're offering those goods or those services,
Mhm.
the broader you do that, the more likely you are to keep people out from using something similar to you and have a sort of penumbra. Think of it sort of like
Hmm.
a force field, right? You put it like a force field around yourself, and you don't want to have holes in the force field where other
Yeah.
people can come in. People like me, when I have a client that needs to come in and is blocked by someone else, I was looking at the ways I can get around those
Yeah.
problems. But so you try to have broad coverage, uh,
Mm.
supported by what you actually do, but broad coverage to really kind of scope out that land, that property for you and your business, and not have the competition that might arise otherwise.
Mm. That's
So, and
helpful,
you
man.
mentioned
Thank you.
fashion,
Thank you.
like
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, you mentioned fashion. Fashion's a good example because, you know, even if you're a clothing designer, right, you might make handbags or jewelry or other types of accessories that are not
Mhm.
themselves clothing. Or maybe the clothing you make is like has a particular function, like it's athletic or it's protective in some way
Mm.
against accidents. Using when it's different, it's a different class.
Mm.
And so you have this issue of, well, which ones should I be protecting?
Mm.
Um, so I mean, I have a client now who's got a trademark for jewelry, but she only has it for jewelry. But I know she does more than that. I know she actually provides some special services that are not covered by the jewelry products, and she
Mm.
uses that trademark for it. And there's a discussion to be had. It's often a budgetary one,
Yeah.
but it's really about how do I get you the most protection for the least costs,
Mhm.
um, so that you're not in a position like you were, right? Not in a position where you're dealing with it later on to the extent possible. It's the same
Yeah.
reason why you went out and bought the domain name, by the way, right?
Mm.
If you're really smart about domain names, you don't just go by .com of the domain name you
Mhm.
want. You kind of figure out a whole slew of what a portfolio of domain names that you want are, because you want the typo squatters, you want
Mhm.
the other top levels, the .infos,
Oh, I like that
.bizes.
term, typo squatter. I never heard that term before. I know
Haven't
what
heard
it
that
is
one?
intuitively when you hear it once, you know what that means, but a typo squatter, that's a great.
Yeah. Yeah, well, they prey on people. So
Mm,
if I wanted missionmatters.com and it's already taken, but I want to misdirect people, maybe do some sort of phishing scam with missionmatters.com, maybe I
mhm,
replace the I in the first I in mission with an L,
mm,
with lowercase l. And it
mm,
looks like Mission Matters enough that someone might just click on the link in a phishing scam,
mm,
and you can have a problem.
mhm. Well, thank you
So
for letting everybody know that, Matthew. Appreciate that. No.
well, I know that you already own that domain, but yeah, but those are the kinds of things that we worry about, right? So
Mm,
you try to get enough of a penumbra around yourself to avoid having these little holes where people can come in. But
mm.
let's bring this back to you, because you're the guest here, and we're spending too much time talking about intellectual property
But
law.
I'm learning, man. This is great. Your audience loves it too. Don't even try it. Come on, man. This is greatness. I'm learning and being educated too, man. This how do you get some free advice and lawyer time? Come on Matthew's podcast. No. This wasn't a billable hour, I don't think. No.
Yeah, I mean, I could send you my bill. I don't think you're
Oh
going to
no,
pay it.
don't do that. Go ahead. What's your next question? I'm good.
Great. Well, Adam, I think I appreciate listening to your stories about your brand and sort of the issues faced as if you're helping other people come up with a brand. But I
Mm,
also kind of wanted to point out that what you create as a podcaster is not solely about the brand.
mm,
Right, the brand ties your reputation to
yeah.
so people know you and what you offer and builds an audience, etc. But you have so much other stuff that goes into the podcasts,
Hmm.
um, and even the podcast itself, the recording of podcasts, right? Those are other forms of intellectual property, which we could talk about or not,
Hmm.
but there's so much else that goes into it. So I wonder about when you are working with when you're working with a new podcaster getting started,
Hmm.
especially if they don't know about this stuff.
Yeah.
What are you telling them in terms of, hey, the episodes they create and what they're going to
Hmm.
do with them and who owns them, and
Yeah.
uh, the logos you create and how
Hmm.
are they being created?
Yeah.
That sort of stuff.
So on their side of things, we have two different relationships here. We have shows that we own. So we have shows that we own, and then we have shows that where we're hired as an agency, and then the podcaster, they own those and all the contracts. We're like work for hire, basically. Think of it as a normal agency question. So for the shows that we own there's a little over 40 of them right now, and outside of, and then if you count the shows that I host, then we're approaching 50 shows that we own as Mission Matters, the brand, and those are various levels of collaborations, and those are all custom. Every single contract is going to be slightly different, and then for the agency clients, those agencies clients, they hire us, we produce the work, and then they own it, like by contract, everything that they own, their work, the graphics, the logos, everything else. And then internally, like our graphic designers, things like that, like they don't have all of their contracts are to where they don't, they don't get any type of reoccurring revenue or any back end, or they don't hold any rights to the work that they produce. So ultimately, the ownership for those clients goes on to the client, whoever hired us to help them produce the show. Hmm.
So that's really relevant in the context of today's technology world,
Hmm.
the world of AI, what's out there. Because if even if you're contracting with the agency
Hmm.
clients, so
Yeah,
that
yeah,
the
yeah.
agency clients would necessarily own the pieces that you create for them and you
Yep.
build with them, not knowing what your people, what your graphic designers are
Hmm.
doing creates issues. Particularly, lately the big thing has been about AI. Do they use AI to create the branding, to come up with the images that are used for the logo?
I don't think we're using like Mid-Journey or anything like that at this point. No, there's been discussion like of at some point maybe incorporating some more, but no, not at this point. Like we're not using Mid-Journey or any of that stuff. But I've seen some really good work done that way though. That could be interesting. So, but I don't even know. Like, so what would the implications be if a company did use something like Mid-Journey? I don't know.
Well, there are a couple implications that are potentially problematic, right?
Mm-hmm.
One of them is that nobody can own it.
Yeah.
Even if your contract says you're transferring it to them, nobody owns it
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's computer created, and we
Mm-hmm.
don't recognize copyrights in computer generated content.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be bad because
I feel like some
this
people are going to listen to that right now. And they're going to be like, uh-oh.
yeah,
Didn't know
well,
that.
that's
So
probably true.
I
That's
not
probably true.
probably, I 100% guarantee somebody built a brand and did some other things and they created it in Mid-Journey. They did all this and they just heard you say that and their heart dropped. Thank you, Matthew.
I actually have a funny story. It's not AI related, but it's kind of similar. This is a client of mine that was a really big company,
Mm.
and they hired a graphic designer to make their logo. The graphic designer went on and found this picture of this animal from Getty Images, paid for, downloaded the royalty-free license without
Not
reading
the
it, of
commercial.
course, and then tweaked it a little bit and delivered it to the client, who filed a trademark application based off of that logo. The trademark application gets refused based on someone else's prior registration, which has the same animal in it. And the client is freaked out. What are we going to do? About that? How are we going to get around this? As it turns out, the earlier registration the other party owns had literally taken the image from Getty Images that was right next to the image that this this graphic designer. They must have used the same graphic designer. I don't know.
They both got good taste, apparently.
And then the other aspect there's nothing you could do. Somebody going to go find this graphic designer and get your money back. It was minimal compared to the cost of the rebrand and all the problems you're going to have to deal with.
Wow.
But we also recognize that the graphic designer didn't read the agreement, the license agreement from when they downloaded from Getty Images, which specifically says you cannot use this as a trademark and you cannot modify this, and it's not exclusive. And so they were delivered something that they couldn't own.
Yeah.
And we had to resolve all that. It was a big problem.
Yeah.
So that's the problem of using, an AI or using a graphic designer who goes out to the internet to get an image that's not theirs, that they didn't create. And that there would be terms that would control what you could or couldn't do with it, and you would think you were the owner of it.
Yeah. We look at things like that in the licensing side, and as well as on the music side. On the music side, like, are you buying a commercial for if a show has intro music or has something different? Are you buying a commercial license? Is that commercial license for film? Is that for radio? Is that for it's all like different licenses for everything you purchase, essentially.
And it can be super confusing, and people just see the word royalty free and they think that means it's okay.
Yeah.
So it's a big issue. So yeah, as your people are working on the graphics, the icon for the podcast, the podcaster, if they're going to be the owner of that, or you, if it's your own, right, need to be aware of, is this ownable?
Yeah.
And then what do you do with the podcasts now? You've got these podcasts. Do you protect them beyond the fact that you put them out in the world?
Not all of them. No, not all of them. The cost and just the amount, and also the size of the shows. Like, you don't you can launch a lot of shows that aren't going to do it. You know what I mean? It's kind of equivalent to, think of a musician. If they want to protect every song, everything that they put out there on YouTube, every video, you need an army.
It's funny though, because the Copyright Office has evolved over the years so that you can file copyright applications that cover multiple work, many videos, many recordings, many books, etc. So it's actually super cheap. It's a $65 or an $85 charge currently, right?
Oh wow, really?
Not a big deal to do.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah, but I get why you wouldn't do it, right? You wouldn't think to do it unless you were actually worried that people were doing something with your podcast. Someone was putting it up somewhere you didn't want it to be. Someone was copying it. Someone was making fake stuff out of it, and then you might want to control it. And so usually that's down the line. You discover that and you're like, okay, I better rush off and go protect it now.
Yeah.
But it's there's all these different aspects. um, I meant to not talk about me, and I meant to get back to you, so I should get off this
No,
topic.
this
But
is good. This is good. This is called education for me, for everybody listening. I'm in. This is greatness.
I was going to talk about the different countries. We already covered that a little bit, so I won't deal with that.
Mhm,
But um, what about when you have a guest? Is there a process that
mhm.
involves a contract with your guests of some sort?
So some will have a release form. So you'll sign like a guest release form that allows for like likeness, image, things like that. So some podcast hosts use that, some don't. It's kind of one of those things where I think industry wide, at least in podcasting, if there was normally if somebody contests or if somebody for some reason claims all of a sudden that they didn't want to do an interview, you just take it down. Like that's pretty
Yeah.
much been the thing. You just take it down. But then some people do sign if you have a like let's just say higher level guests or you have celebrities coming on or things like that, then you might have to do a contract with even before they're coming on the show because like how is their likeness going to be used, how is their image going to be used, maybe depending on how high level the celebrity is, you might have to get a clearance on any of the marketing material that you're putting out because they're protecting that brand. So
Yeah.
I would say there's levels, there's levels of protection. There's levels of we were doing just for example, really high level celebrity. Everybody in the world knows this person's name, and at the end, a part of our contract in working with that celebrity was that we couldn't even say that we work with them, like anything, like production. You couldn't
Yeah.
do social media. You couldn't do anything. So it's like they never exist. They never existed. You get the paycheck, which is good, right? But on the back end, and it makes sense. Like they don't want, like, let's say Mission Matters making a documentary about working with XYZ celebrity because they don't even have to be in it. Just even telling the story itself of how that show was launched, even if you didn't use any IP, even if you didn't do anything, you didn't use any images, even if you just did it regularly, it would get traction. It's a great story. So even if it's just the process of launching. So at that level of brand, you don't want somebody going out there making a documentary about like a job you hired them for, which actually would be great content.
There's other aspects of it that I think the celebrity, as an example, like
Hmm.
might want to protect against, right? Because like you talked about at the very beginning, the top of the podcast,
Yep.
right? This is about this legacy where we're forever going to be able to
Yep.
be found together having this conversation. And what would happen if, my reputation or your reputation was severely damaged publicly
Yeah.
later on? And then people would be going back and seeing this association, and that could
Hmm.
damage the brand of the celebrity, right? So
Absolutely.
there's all sorts of reasons to be careful about it. There's a
Hmm.
funny story about this is not a celebrity, about a family that posted I think their Thanksgiving photographs on a web page or something, and they went on a family trip to Brazil, and they were driving. The roads in Brazil deep in are not great. They're driving deep in the roads of Brazil, not in Sao Paulo, because a place where you're allowed to have billboards. And there was a billboard, and the billboard had their photo on it,
Stop.
advertising something. That just happens. People just grab the photo because they think they can, and they just use it. And these people are like, oh, what are we doing on a photo, in a billboard somewhere?
That's
We
the
should be able to
best.
control that, right?
I don't know. Anybody wants to do that, go put my face on something and mail it to me. That's funny.
Oh, don't say that. That's recorded. So you've just
uh,
given a implicit endorsement for anybody.
okay. Well, just make sure you send traffic to missionmatters.com. It's cool. I'm in
Nicely
media. It's
done.
all right.
So, Adam, you've got 6,000 podcasts, and you help people launch podcasts. If someone wants to find out how to launch a podcast, or they want to listen to, how do they know what podcast to go
Yeah.
listen to, and how do they know, and how do they get in touch in terms of doing their own?
So what I would tell everybody to do is head to my Instagram, Ask Adam Torres, and if you shoot me a DM, you got a show idea, you want to pitch a show, and Ask Adam Torres on Instagram. There's also a link there on that, and you'll see when you click on it, you're going to see our books, you're going to see our shows, you're going to see a free newsletter, a bunch of free ebooks on how to launch a podcast, on how to get booked as a guest on podcast, how to write a bestseller, all kinds of free stuff.
So one thing I really, really love about you and the few times we've met is that you are all about being accessible and about, being transparent.
Mm-hmm.
And I really greatly appreciate that, that aspect, right? Just making, because you're on screen all the time, you're doing all these things, and someone who doesn't know you, like, it's alien, it's fearful, right, to approach you, like, is he even going to respond to me? And I love that you are like, no, absolutely, I'll be on your show, absolutely, I will talk you through it. And it doesn't matter, like, you give, and it goes back to what you said at the top of the podcast about mission matters, how you evolved from something very financially driven to something that's very spiritually driven, and what you give of yourself that way. So I greatly appreciate your being on the show, and you're making yourself accessible to other people this way.
Well, thank you, Matthew. I mean, for all your hard work. And as I mentioned, we're part of each other's legacy. We got our first episode in, man. This is awesome. Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much. You've been listening to Intangify. Hope to see you next time.